And I'd like to call the meeting of the Corpus Christi B Corporation, Type B Corporation to order. Mr. On, if you would be so kind.
Let me let the control room know.
Pardon?
The control room. Let me just let them know.
Yeah, oh, she's letting the control room know that we were going to start. She told me to do that and I forgot. We're taping.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. On, would you please call the roll?
President Leah Oliveri,
Present?
Vice President Alan Wilson,
Here.
Secretary Diana Summers, absent. Board Member Scott Harris.
He's going to be absent.
Okay. Board members Jesus Jimenez,
Present.
Robert Tamez,
Present.
and John Valls.
Present.
A
Thank
quorum
you.
of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you very much. We'd like to move on to item C, which is public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to offer public comment? Seeing no one approach, thank you. Mr. On, has anyone indicated that they would like to?
They have not.
Okay, thank you. Then we have the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Valls and a second from Mr. Tamez that we approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion carries. And then related to that item, though, there is an issue of excused absences. I don't believe we have any from the last meeting, but I want to report to you all that we had a question that arose because somebody had been absent for 2 meetings. And the rules that we thought were that if you had to ask for an excused absence at the next meeting. It turns out that those may be the council rules, but they are not rules that we have adopted. So I'm going to ask the legal department to perhaps come back with some drafted rules. Obviously, one of the issues we sometimes have that may be a little bit different than the council is we may meet monthly and sometimes we even skip a month. So it can be kind of a little bit more distant, but we had an issue that came up with one of the board members who had an illness and an issue, and so we were not able to excuse one of those absences. So perhaps if we could get a policy for the next meeting, that would be helpful for both Type A and Type B. Thank you. And with that, the financial report is next. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Valls, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. So what is the issue with being absent? Is there, I haven't looked at the state law. If you miss so many within a certain period of time, you automatically vacate your seat, or what's the big deal with being absent? I know that when you're considering a reappointment, you know, it helps to be present as much as possible to give the council comfort that you're participating. I get that, but what are the sanctions for being absent, if there are any?
Council has some policies related to boards and commissions that if there's so many absences in effect, yeah, you're giving up your seat. And that's why they created the process for allowing other members of the boards or commissions to excuse those absences so that they won't give up their seat automatically. But the Type A and Type B corporation, they're treated differently. They don't fall under that policy. So that would be something for y'all to look at yourselves in your bylaws.
What does the state law say? What does the statute say?
Yeah, I haven't looked into it. That might be a question Amy would know off the top of her head, but it's covered, the absences for everybody else is covered by council policy. And you can cover it through your bylaws.
Yeah, you might introduce yourself, I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Oh,
or
I'm
Mr. Zanoni can.
Hi, I'm Adelita Cavada, one of the assistant city attorneys and sitting in for Amy today.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Madam President.
Hi, good afternoon. Heather Hurlbut, Director of Finance. Today we'll be going over the financial statements for the 5 months ended February 28th, 2023. So this is a brief overview of all of the different funds within the Type B. We do have the affordable housing, economic development, and the streets. So we did begin the fiscal year with the combined funds of 12.5 million in fund balance, and that is the audited balance. We have completed our audit. Revenues year to date are 3.9 million, with expenditures year to date of 645,000, leaving an ending fund balance as of February 28th of 15.7 million. So a brief overview of the expenditures. The primary expenditures are the transfers to the general fund, which is for the administration of the three different areas, the regional economic development contract, and then small and the major business incentives that are paid out through the economic development portion of the fund. So then drilling down a little bit more deeply into the different programs, affordable housing. We have two commitments, one for the Alma at Greenwood, the other for the infill housing incentive program. Looking at our economic development, we do have several commitments, including our recurring small business contracts, the TAMU-CC Unmanned Aircraft Systems Center, Next Sports Company LLC, and the South Texas Botanical Gardens. And then looking at streets, we have one commitment, which is the transfer over to the CIP for the the project that is the redo of the streets within the industrial areas. That money has been transferred over to CIP, and that project, I think, is in design right now. So that does, oh wait, I've got one more here. So then looking at our sales tax revenue update, to date, we are actually over budget for our revenues, which is a good over budget position to have. And we've collected almost $100,000 more than was budgeted in the first 5 periods of the fiscal year. And we expect that will continue. Our sales tax collections are strong, and they have continued to be for this fiscal year. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? I don't see any. I will note one thing. We received our packets by email, but those packets did not get posted to Legistar that I see, so we might want to make sure. I'm sure it was just a little glitch, but I don't think the details got posted somehow.
Okay, we'll follow up on that.
Thank you, so the public can take a look and
Sure.
raise questions.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We don't have any executive sessions. I think the next thing is we have a presentation from Mr. Culberson of the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation. And before he begins, let me say that congratulations for all of us are in order, as Mr. Culberson has accepted, I understand it, the position of no longer interim acting, but
There you go.
the man in green.
Yeah, so I think we'll see. We'll see if that's a
Congratulations.
blessing. Good afternoon, Mike Culbertson from your Corpus Christi EDC. So let's talk about this. A lot of stuff is moving. So the Botanical Gardens, remember you said 89,000. They used that as a match for the Parks and Rec. And of course, COVID and all sorts of stuff. And that was, they did receive the agreement. Now, the 89 could still do, the part that we had discussed, but the Parks and Rec could take it all the way, not Parks and Rec, what's it called? Parks and Wildlife could take it all the way around and make it ADA compliant. Their biggest problem right now, believe it or not, is they needed a, if you've ever done a capital fund, you have to have, are they endangered species, are they Indians and tribe there, yeah, historical. So they've had trouble getting that. They've gone out, they got one bid, and of course they have to have 3, so they have to actually go out for a bid again, and then if they only get 1, they're okay. But that's really pushed them back, and I really think that they're going to need an extension. Theirs expires 8/21. They could probably do their portion, but they're holding that for the Texas Parks and Wildlife. So we will get back with you on that and talk a little bit about it.
So in order to accept the grant, because it's from a state, they have to do the environmental studies, and
That's
they've had a
correct.
difficult time
Right.
getting qualified people to.
Right, to bid on it.
Yes.
They do have 1, but since they only had 1, they have to go back out for it. And, we make these regulations, and they make sense, don't get me wrong. I mean, you really want that, but sometimes it really becomes an impediment, and this is one of those times. And it's really COVID, right? So you'll hear this throughout as we've gone along. Del Mar, I have my cast of thousands over behind my thing. Process technology too. You went out there, and thank you, and it's a great idea. If you get a chance, the rest of you, go on out. I mean, it's just amazing. If you're a pilot, we say that one peek is worth 1,000 scans. So if you can take a look at that stuff, and it's in glass. So, I was on a carrier for a lot of years, and we make our own water, and we make it through an evap. And I could tell you technically how it works, but you see it in glass. It is the coolest thing in the world. If I'd have seen that, if they had that at UT in 1979, I mean, I would have had a much easier time, I think, especially with the dynamics where stuff starts moving. And so, but they're doing well. They'll probably spend out the rest of theirs. They have, they've been around grants a long time. They know how they works. So don't expect any money back from them. New sports company, city manager and his staff and myself and Dr. Okonkwo met, and he's still working through some of the things that he's doing. He is, I think, finally has all of the permits. So remember, he bought more property so that he could move the parking lot over onto that side. So now we don't have the crossing, although it's still part of the agreement if he has overflow, for example, that he block it so that people can't cross. They have to cross at the crosswalk, which fencing or something like that. And he's the same way. He is October 30th of 23 of this year, and so he may need an extension. And these just, it's just COVID. It just pops up. I appreciate that all this board has done. If these were approved during the COVID era, if that's what you want to call it, but they also got bit by the COVID era. So I will keep you informed of that, but I just want you to be ready for it and not surprised. I still think it's a great idea. It's a great quality of place stuff. We did a quality of place study, the EDC did, and we were helped with other people, AEP, Texas A&M, and it really helps to get us through to stickiness is how people stay here. And we have a guy who does our books at the EDC. His daughter plays in select soccer, and her home field is San Antonio. So that's where he has to go. I mean, that's the way it is. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cook, we have a couple of questions from
okay.
the board, and I think they have to do with next.
On this project, does he have financing secured?
Yes, they do. So that was one of the things. In the agreement, it said that they had to show the city manager that they had the financing. They have the financing. However, because of what they're doing, they have to get the SBA to actually get the loan number. That's what they're waiting on. And so the city wrote a letter granting an extension for them to get that, and I think it's middle of May? May 15th, and they should have it. But they have all the financing. They have the bank. They're just waiting on the SBA.
Yeah, and how much did they spend? Several million, right?
Yes.
Millions.
Oh, yeah.
So Dr. Kingsley's definitely vested in the project, and it's going to happen because of the economy.
Yeah.
The loan situation slowed a little bit. We did grant him a few more weeks just to be on the safe side. So the personal meeting, it was a one-on-one meeting here with him. It's upstairs. So we'll report back to you on the 15th.
Well, thank you for doing a great job of keeping track of that, as well as working through the issues. Mr. Voss.
Thank you, Madam President. Mike, so did you say development services? There were some hiccups there on this project, or what? Because we talked about development services extensively at the last meeting.
Yes, sir.
And not being a barrier, but maybe even having somebody from City Hall act as a liaison on some of these types of projects to make sure that they can expedite these processes. Because we talked last time, and waiting for an inspector to come
Right.
out and issue the approval for
Right,
a
to
certificate of
get-
occupancy. I mean, time is money.
Yeah.
And
Especially when they're looking at grant funding. so-
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Well, and especially when they're backed by the city. I mean, this is a city project, basically, because
Right.
we've invested, or we're committed to invest,
Yeah.
a lot of money into this project. So what's the status with development services on this project? Is there a hiccup there?
Well, you want to,
Dr. Kingsley, who I met with personally, didn't mention any. I think it's, I haven't heard that from him, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
not to say there isn't any, but I think he did admit that he didn't know how complex it would be to construct something like this. So it may be a little on both sides, where it's a little bit of naivety on his side and his contractors. And development services, though, is, as you mentioned, it's a city project, so they know to make sure we're gonna get it done.
but do they really know? Because,
No,
I
they know.
mean, it's not about Dr. Kingsley knowing the complexities of developing a
Right.
construction project. He's not in the contracting business, he's a physician.
Right.
But I imagine the engineers, the architects, and the contractor, they know how to navigate projects like this, and they know how to navigate development services. So, I mean, we need to have eyes on these types of projects to make sure
Right.
that somebody's, holding their hand and walking them through, because, I mean, time is money. And I've talked to a lot of folks that get hiccups at development services, and we even talked last time about maybe even, engaging somebody on city staff or somewhere throughout the organization to serve as a liaison on city-related projects. So the last thing that I think we would like to hear is that there are hiccups over there because they can't get an inspector or permitting or whatever the case
Yes.
may be.
Yeah.
But as long as somebody has eyes on it, on this side.
We do.
yeah.
Okay.
And I've talked with Al Raymond on multiple occasions, and he met, with me, and
Thank you,
we've
Madam
gone through.
President.
Mr. Jimenez?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a quick question. I know we're showing the complete construction by November 30th of this year.
Right.
That's probably gonna be pushed, right? Or
Right.
are we gonna get a?
We
we'll
would
get an
have to
updated schedule.
ask you,
Yeah.
for an extension.
Okay, so we'll get an updated schedule along with them.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. You want to continue?
And just so you know, when that happens, it's happened before, and I tell people, if they say, well, we can probably be done by January, I go, okay, so we'll ask for May. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't try to give ourselves another problem.
Sometime we get rain, Yeah.
International Consulting Engineers, they are in their last year, and I'm going to go out there and visit one last time. Again, they were top small business. I mean, huge accolades. But we're still working through jobs and things like that. So, Texas A&M Industrial and Civil. Now, I'm going to kind of talk about these, but be aware that Kelly and Dr. Kelly, I can't call her Kelly because my wife's a PhD, so gets me, I can't say that. But Dr. Kelly will and her group will be out here next month is when they're scheduled, and they'll talk about this one and the Lone Star and anything else you need to hear about. So, but they're moving along. Now, this is the civil and engineering. They've already paid 1.1. It is just miraculous to me that you could get a cup full of dirt and figure out what the packing needs to be and the friction when you do that. I was aerospace. We didn't do that. We broke wood and steel rods, in materials, but that's it. So I'm just amazed. And I have a lot of students, and we're really starting to pump them out, and these are both industrial and civil, which we did not have before. So, it is just pretty cool. So, let's talk about the Lone Star Flight Center. Lone Star Flight Center is...
One second, I have another.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Voss has a comment.
Thank you,
sir.
Madam President. Mike, with respect to A&M's engineering department, so I see here 141 students are in the curricula and 212 are in pre-engineering. Do we have any tracking mechanism that tells us how many of these students that have graduated through this program are actually staying here? Because if I remember, that was the whole intent, is to educate, train engineers here so that they stay in a local community.
Right.
I mean, how many are actually staying here in this community? Do we know?
No.
Okay.
But we're going to know that because that
Okay.
came up. And while that's not a compliance issue, just that the number of graduates, but we are going to start doing that on this May. and finding out where they're going. Now, of course, sometimes they lose track, but initially we are going to see if they have a job and how many are in here. And of course, we won't talk about who or where, but
Right.
that is something that they've committed to, and I've committed to reporting.
Because I'd like to see over the life of this project, how much we have invested in this program of work here, and then
And
translate
staying
that into how many are actually staying here. One of the things that I've been asked on numerous occasions by some of the hospitals, is they're having a hard time retaining physicians out of their residency program, or even retaining physicians
Yes.
into the residency program. So, I mean, I'm thinking, if we can train engineers, can't we help train doctors too, and then try to keep them in the community? At least you'd be able to kind of tell which doctors from the residency program are
Right.
staying in the community afterwards, but we should have been doing this all along.
Yes.
I mean, we keep pumping money into this program, but then
Right.
we don't know what the outcome is.
Understand.
So is there a way that, you're going to report back to us
Yes.
exactly? Okay. And then how much we've spent on this program throughout the life of the program?
Yeah. Well, so far, 1.1 of the grant has been out, and they still have another 800,000. And they believe that they'll use all of that as they go through.
Okay, yeah. I mean, total investment in the program, because we've spent a lot of money in that program, haven't we, throughout the years?
Yes,
Or
we
is it-
have, because you have electrical, mechanical, of course, you bought the Innovation Center,
Right.
the old Wells Fargo building. I have that.
Yeah.
I can do that. I can put that in my next one.
I mean, because that's really the goal, is if we're going to train, this type of skill set, and I think the intent was really to support the port industries and everything that surrounds the port industries. But if we're training them, we're paying for them, and they're
Right.
not staying here, then we're missing the mark somehow.
Understand.
So, okay, I appreciate you staying on top of it.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
Thank
on,
you.
on that subject, I have had some conversations when I went for a tour. I think you were all invited, but I went. It was fascinating. Doing some really interesting work out there. But, I challenged maybe JJ and people connected to the engineering community, because part of that is also the continuum of internships, school, stay here. And I don't know that the engineering community is, or maybe they haven't been engaged enough to encourage some of these kids to be, intern with them in the summer or
Right.
something like that.
And one of the things that came out during the quality of place and also the targeted industry was Corpus First job fair. And A&M just embraced it, and they had their first one last year, in the spring. We didn't have a great turnout on local, but I think we had 3 firms, but they are expecting many more this time. And it's basically a chance for engineering firms to go out and see the graduates, the seniors that are going up. And if there was a meeting, just so we've added engineering. First, adding engineering was a big deal. And then, we added all these different programs. There was a meeting of city fathers of Kingsville and Corpus Christi about what Corpus Christi could have. And they wrote it down on a piece of paper. And you know where that piece of paper was? It was at Cotton's. When you go to pay, if you turned around and walked to the wall, it was on that thing. And then A&M started doing a lot of engineering things, and Cotton's burned down. I don't know if that's related, but anyway. If I was there, I would have saved that piece of paper. So.
I think Mr. Jimenez had maybe a comment.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment that we do have, like, within our office, I have four engineers
Oh, wow.
that
All right.
came through internships in the summer. 2 of them were actually 2 back-to-back internships, and then they graduated from AM and Corpus. They actually graduated as mechanical engineers, and we turned them civils. But so we got and then 2 others from AM Kingsville.
All right.
What we've been doing as well is now we've expanded our internship program to bring in students from A&M Corpus, A&M Kingsville, and also high school.
Oh, well.
We
Great.
had high school, middle school this last summer, so it's the need for engineering and personnel within the engineering technical field it's in high demand right now. So it's a good spot. And I saw that A&M Corpus started the civil engineering department. And I know I don't know if they've graduated anybody yet out of that
curriculum, but you know, they should be starting to come out, so it'll be nice and easier to track, at least on that discipline, to start tracking the, you know, where they go and where they, you know, if they stay here, they go somewhere. And the mechanical's been around for a while, so we'll probably have to do some research on that. But I know in civil, it should be. I'm not sure when if the first class are to graduate or they should be pretty.
I think they're graduating this.
This
They
year?
told us that they're graduating this May.
Okay. Cool.
Before you go, I know I'm taking the board's time and I'm doing my compliance thing, but is that a requirement in the degree plan? Or it's not through the internship that we have with Texas A&M, right?
No,
Okay.
we just do it on our own.
Okay.
Type of deal.
All right.
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
But it'll be nice if we start, or even like Madam Chairman was saying, you know, maybe start with other. I know I've talked to Ram Munoz from Munoz Engineering here locally, and maybe other companies to start, you know, bringing in more internships or so. I mean,
Because we have a
program.
senior executive breakfast, and you've been there, Al. They all stand up and go, "We're looking for people."
Mm-hmm.
And one of them said that with I don't know if you want to call it climate change or whatever, but there is a lot of money coming for, you know, flooding, coastal flooding, things like
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Billions of dollars, and you're going to need engineers, and everybody's going to need them.
And that's one topical area that they're working on that's very interesting in terms of monitoring. I mean, one thing is that when young people in the program, don't they get some credit towards the number of years that they work with under the tutelage of an engineer? Does that count?
To their licenses, yeah, they
Yeah.
could count some of
Yeah,
that
so
time
it does
towards their
count
license.
for them
It
in
counts
terms
toward your
of
2
being
years?
eligible
Yeah.
to take,
To some
to sit for the exam.
Some companies give, like, you know, just it's a non-paid internship, but what we do, we actually pay them, so it's actually a job. So they have, you know, the hours to show up, so they could use that experience towards their license if they need to. As a matter of fact, we just opened an office in Kingsville to kind of do the same, you know, hire. Right now, we're finding it's hard to find engineers that are already graduated or out there. Well, they're all,
Yeah.
you know, they're in short supply. So we opened an office in Kingsville to hire students from A&M Kingsville. The ones here, we know we hire them at our office, but in Kingsville, so make it easier for a student to, you know, get out
Oh,
of
just be
class.
there, yeah.
Yeah, get out of class. We're at Claiborne Bank there in Kingsville, so go from class, they can go to the office. And we've hired one gentleman that I'm about to put an offer. He's a sophomore.
Wow.
So that's.
I'm pretty sure I couldn't have done internship on top of my caseload.
Yep.
My workload at college.
So it's kind of like, you know, the demand. That's what I'm trying to say. That the demand is high, and you know, yeah, we're having to, you know, start training people from their sophomore year, junior year, and it's
Yes.
great because they can either work while they're going to school or they can do internships back to back and follow on a path, you know. So
Okay.
help them out. Good mentorship. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Lone Star Flight. We've really taken this on. We are attending the drone shows with Texas A&M. We're fielding a lot of companies. As we said, we can't incentivize a single company. It's just too few people, but we could put a lot of money into operations, and so that you could come down here and get your craft, your payload, and your operator certified, FAA certified, and that's the whole point, right? When they were setting up these FAA centers of excellence, it was the Congress had told the FAA, you need to incorporate drones into the national airspace. And, you know, everybody thinks of air and everybody thinks of that, but it is, having been a pilot, I mean, you cannot take off without somebody knowing in clearance. So they will be here next month to talk about it, but they're doing well, and, you know, it's just in their infancy. So let's get into Lift Fund. Let's get into the small business. Lift Fund, through something happened last July, but anyway, I missed it, and I should have brought their agreement, and then their agreement came in late, and then there was a change. So I just received today the first 2 invoices on this, and they're moving right along as they always do. They had used a lot of federal money last time, and that's dried up, and so now they're using ours. Things are going really well for them. I'm supposed to jump in a car with Laura. Just so you know, we go and visit everybody who had funds last time. That's part of my compliance. So you can see the loans are 0, but, you know, they have two hit. You know, I saw it on my email before I headed over. SCORE's doing well, of course. You know, they have 13 certified mentors. 7 are self-employed, 6 are retired, which I hope to be, but now I'm going to be here a little bit longer. They are going along. Lift Fund and SCORE are fiscal year ones, while all the other ones are calendar year because, you know, they're school-based. It's just easier for them. You know, we can't stop in the middle of a semester. We have the college interns. Joe actually asked a question about what are we doing for marketing, and we pressed a lot to him what they're doing. I got another invoice from them. Remember, theirs is calendar year, so they're just getting started on that 12,000 with 78 to go. They're really making a big push to go through and get companies, get students. Last time they had more students than companies, so I think she's starting to average out a little bit better in that case. Moving on to the SBDC, I will tell you, we had talked about this being a temporary, like 5 years ago. The legislature, you know what Ann Richards say, no one's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness is safe while the Texas legislature's in session. They had cut their funding and, you know, to everybody. So I'm sorry, we're still on internships. But anyway, they're let me get to, forget it. All right. So this is what they're doing for they're updating the handbook. You know, they're really looking through their employer database, and really the ability to push out things. You know, they have just so you know, Del Mar has 2 interns that work the program inside, and they've also moved it over into the SBDC, and then A&M has 1, just so you know. And they're really pushing hard to getting more companies to do it. I think their students are fine. I'm already hearing good things about the extra money that the board, thank you very much, put up in their agreement. And I'm hearing that from A&M also, speaking of which. They are doing well. They have the 32 interns and 21. So far, Del Mar had 1 full-time. A&M, they usually wait till the end of the year to do that, either in May, because, you know, people come out. It's a little easier for Del Mar. Del Mar, you know, they're done in 1 to 2 years, especially if they go a year and then start, you know, they're almost ready to go. While A&M, you know, like you said, you had a sophomore, you know, you have a junior, so it takes a little bit longer to get there to the end. But they've already said, you know, all of the things that they had that makes it easier for them to do that. And they, too, are really pushing hard on marketing to try to find, you know, this is a great service not only for employers but for students. And so it's a great thing. And you have you know, experience. You know, does that help? You know, I know you take the EIT and then you do the then you do work for an engineer, licensed engineer for 2 years, and then you take the PNP. But, you know, just imagine, even if you don't get paid, even if you don't get that, you know, hey, I worked for these people for 3 summers, as opposed to, hey, I was in intramural sports. You know, yeah, I mean, it certainly helps. PTAC, I mean, it is, so I go to a couple of their events, and I mean, it's always very impressive. They have, did I forget it? What's your name? What? No, I know your name. But what do you call yourself now?
Well, now, Apex Accelerators.
Okay, they're doing that, AFAC Accelerators. So, you know, it still is PTAC, but AFAC Accelerators, and they are doing fine. Take a look at that. Contracts of $106 million, and these are small businesses. You know, this is how we can get this board in their insight, you know, foresight, can look out and help people that, and I mean, it's complicated. I've worked for a small business. When I first started as a accountant, you know, they were like, do you want to work for a Unical and have AP, A through CI, or you want to work for a small business and do everything in accounting? So, but having a small staff, it's very difficult to get through, and knowing, that's the other thing. Okay, I did this. Oh, you got like 8 more steps to go. So those are the important things. And who helps them that? But the SBDC. So they are doing well. You can see how they've gone into the number of unique clients. And that's one of the things that we do on both on SCORE and PTAC and CRC. It's unique clients, not just, hey, somebody came 5 times, so I have 5.
Right.
So you're getting information.
Good metric.
Yes. CRC is doing well also. Of course, they have 150,000. Their contract's a little lower. I will be honest, we thought that this would be an easy thing. There are requirements in tax abatements that they have buy local, and they try. However, a couple of things happen. For example, if you were to talk to Refinery Row, there are no purchasers here. Their purchasers are in Houston or San Antonio. And it's Joe, and you're calling, and you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah. But what we really try to do is, especially for, say, Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, and we use them almost as a standard. You have to do this to sign up so that you can get in there. What we're finding is not a prime, but a regular contractor may not be as easy as a sub. So you almost have to look the other side. Look at who they're hiring and then go to that person. So CRC is really, Margaret's doing a really good job, trying to find that place to get into. And that's what they're doing. They have 39 clients, and they've done a lot of sessions. And again, it's the same thing. You would think this is easy, but you have to be OSHA certified. You have to be, you have to have a DNB. You have to all of these things. So, and I won't read that. Don't worry. So the SBDC, again. Now let me get back. The legislature, there's nothing in there that has indicated that they will increase their spending on these, and so you can expect a request. And I will stand here in a couple of months, and I won't miss it this time, and tell you that this is a hugely important part of small business assistance, not just for the board, but for the city. It is a huge amount of things. You can go from 2 counselors to 5 with what the board helps out. And the importance of that cannot be understated, as we saw during COVID, and as we see, and I will tell you, we follow the Fed really closely, and I really thought that there was some point when we could outgrow the inflation. I thought we could. January was 511,000 jobs. February was 327, and March, I think, just came out as 167 or 200 something. I was like, we could grow out of this. And then a bank failed. And, for whatever reason, it failed. It didn't fail because, they didn't have enough money. They had money somewhere else, If you think about It's a Wonderful Life, he's like, no, your money's in Joe's mortgage, which actually I think is a really good way to explain it. And I thought, okay, now they won't raise rates, and it'll allow the economy, and they raise rates. So I really think they're going to burn this thing to the ground. There's no doubt in my military mind they are going to kill this thing, and good luck. So I'm going to retire and have nothing.
You got to get us.
Yeah, so I will come back and be a consultant for you.
Okay, is that your report now?
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about other things.
Because we're a little past time to start the next
Oh, I'm
meeting.
sorry.
So I just want to,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, quickly, if you
Okay.
have anything.
We're still pushing the innovation fund. The city's talking about it also. Whoever does it, we think it's important. We're tracking bills. There's actually a bill for a Type C. We have an AB and a Type C. There's one to limit the ETJ to feet. So Gregory would be 100 feet, Robstown would be 500 feet, and Corpus would be a half a mile. I mean, it's just crazy.
Okay.
A lot of stuff at the airport, and we talked about using Type B out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Innovation Fund, I think it would be really good when everybody gets a little bit of a framework for a plan to be able to take a look at that, because I think that would be another way to really incentivize new companies to come into our area, so. Okay, with that, thank you very much. City Manager, Mr. Zanoni, do you have any report?
No report today, Chairman.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with that then, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and we'll take about 2 minutes to transfer to the next meeting. So with that, I will call the meeting of the Corpus Christi Business and Job Development Corporation Type A to order. Mr. On, could you please call the roll?
President Leo Oliveri,
Present.
Vice President Alan Wilson,
Present.
Secretary Diana Summers, absent. Board Member Scott Harris, absent. Okay, Board Members Jesus Jimenez,
Present.
Robert Tamez,
Present.
and John Vols.
And I should note that this is the first time in 5 years of service that Mr. Harris has had to miss a Type A and Type B meeting, so that's pretty impressive.
A quorum
Okay.
of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Was there anyone that would like to make a public comment, please? I don't see anyone. Okay, Mr. On, have you received any public comments?
I have not.
Thank you. With that, let's turn to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, or are there any changes? Moved by Mr. Valls,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Jimenez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. With that, I'll ask Ms. Holbert to give us a financial report.
Sure. Good afternoon, Board Chairman Heather Holbert, Director of Finance. So today we'll be reviewing the financial statements for the 5 months ended February 28th, 2023. We began for the Seawall Fund, we began the year with a fund balance of a little over $20 million. That is an audited fund balance as we have completed our fiscal year 22 audit. Revenues year to date are 3.9, almost $4 million. Expenditures year to date are 2.7, almost $2.8 million, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $21.2 million. Now, those expenditures are primarily made up of $2.7 million for the debt payment on the seawall and $69,000 for administrative services. So this next slide shows all of the different the projects which are within the CIP fund. There are a handful of these that are in the process of being closed out. And so any excess funds that are left within that budget will be rolled to the reserve appropriation to be used for other projects as they come forward. Then switching over to the Arena Fund. So we began the fiscal year with $15.6 million in fund balance. Revenues year to date are $3.9 million. Expenditures year to date are $634,000, leaving an ending fund balance of $18.8, almost $18.9 million. Now, the $634,000 expenditures are primarily related to, there's $235,000 for debt, $42,000 for administration, and then $355,000, which is a transfer to the visitor facility to support the commitments to the arena operations that is supported through our Type A. So then moving into the Economic Development Fund. This fund is no longer receiving funds through the sales tax collections, as this 1/8 cent was transitioned over to a Type B. So these are just the remaining balances. So we began the year with a $1.7 million in fund balance. Revenue years to date primary is from investment income of $28,000. Expenditures year to date are $12.8, almost $13,000, leaving an ending fund balance of $1.7 million. We do have outstanding commitments of almost $1.7 million, leaving an available fund balance of almost $70,000. And affordable housing fund balance, of that, $10,000 can be allocated for affordable housing, and $60,000 of that can be for future economic development projects. So looking at the affordable housing, we do have two commitments, one for the fish pond development, which is my understanding is that one is wrapping up, and so hopefully we'll be paying that one out soon. And then the other is for the Alma at Greenwood. We did have a refund that came back into the fund of $10,000, and so we've allocated that to the Home Buyer Assistance Program, as that was a sale that had happened before the commitment period was over, and so the homeowner did owe that back to the fund. Then looking at the major business incentives, Mike has just talked about some of these over on the Type B side, but these are some of the commitments that we have. The Whataburger Field upgrades are completed, and we are in the process of processing that payment back to the Hooks. So then looking at a sales tax, just as in Type B and Type A, we have collected more than what was budgeted, and so we are almost $200,000 to the good over the budgeted collections. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
I have one thing that I'd like you to remind us all.
Sure.
So that the Type A fund is no longer receiving revenue. Can you
Exactly.
give us the dates for the remaining Type A funds when those sales taxes conclude?
Sure. For the for the arena, that concludes in 2025.
Okay.
And then for the seawall is 2026.
Okay, so next year, the board will need to begin to talk about. But, and then the only other thing I noticed is $10,000 left in housing. I mean,
Yeah, it was because of that refund.
yeah,
So one of the
what are we
things,
going to do with that?
so one of the things we had moved some money basically from Type A to Type B to be used on the affordable housing there. We can verify that is something that the board
Might
can
be
make.
able to continue that path. yeah.
Exactly.
And I guess I have a question, maybe this is for you or Ms. Sanchez, but let's assume that we come to the end of this, we still will have a responsibility to, that money stays there. We can't send it anywhere else.
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. Once it's collected for that purpose. So,
Then it has
the fund balances that are sitting in the arena and the seawall would still need to be used, even though there
Right.
may not be adding additional revenue if those 1/8 cents are reallocated to another purpose, or whether it comes back into the general fund, then those balances would stay there and continue being utilized for those
Right.
purposes.
So for anybody that has their sights set on that money, it has to remain within the boundaries
It does.
of the past public action.
Yes.
Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Voss.
I do, thank you, Madam President. The arena, you said it's 2025?
Yes.
Okay, so that's when the 1/8 drops off?
Yes.
And then for the seawall, 2026?
Yes.
Okay, so that would have to go before the voters again to repurpose it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Prior to the expiration.
Right, prior to exportation, just like the economic development tax for Type A, right? Which became B?
Exactly, we reallocated that over to B, yes.
Okay. On the arena, when, do you know, you probably may not know off the top of your head, but when do the naming rights for the arena come back up? Peter, do you have an idea? I've had actually.
I think it's another year from now, Commissioner. Yeah, I think it's another year from now, about a year from now.
Are you talking American Bank?
Yeah, yeah, American
Yeah,
Bank
right.
Center arena, American Bank
Yeah,
Center.
our current operator, OVG 360, has a real good strategy on naming rights, not only for the facility,
Okay.
but for also various venues within side.
Okay,
And it will generate millions for the operation, saving taxpayer money.
okay, okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Madam President.
And while we're on the subject of ABC, I happened to go to a very nice event at Salina, and I'm going to bring it up. So maybe if somebody's listening from the convention area, there's a huge chunk of concrete that's out. Just if you're coming up from the south parking lot into the steps that go up. I mean, this is big, and people were tripping over it. I don't know why it would still be there, but it was commented on by many around me, so. And I managed not to trip on it. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I got a broken leg, yeah. But, thank you. On to the next item, I believe thank you very much, Ms. Holbert, for that. With that, I think we have a presentation. Do we have another presentation by Mr. Culbertson? Huh? Oh, that was the previous. I'm sorry, I changed agenda, sorry. We have a presentation, excuse me. Let me recognize, I assume we have an engineer in the audience, Mr. Edmonds. They look the same.
Good afternoon, Madam President, board members. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services from your Engineering Services Department. So the item before you is regarding the C District water features, the water garden, and it's a request to amend the CIP to add additional funding for the construction budget on that project. As you know, we're in the process of exercising a design-build contract, and we're moving along the negotiations. We haven't finalized those. Brett Van Hazel, who's our construction manager, is point in negotiating that contract with Fulton Construction. But we're far enough along to know that there is not adequate funding within the existing CIP. So what we're asking Type A to do is to allocate an additional $3.5 million for the construction of the water garden restoration.
Okay, do I have any board members that wish to make any comments? Mr. Wilson?
Jeff, I just had a few questions. Do you feel like that 3.5 gets the job complete?
3.5 is what we're projecting right now. Like I say, we're still in negotiations. We haven't finalized that guaranteed maximum price, but I'm not going to tell you that there's a lot of headroom in that figure. But
Can I add to that? There's a chance it could come in higher than that.
Okay.
There's a chance that it could come in higher.
And then a question for Peter, if I could ask. I think it would be great for that thing to be operating. Does the city have the money and the will to do the preventive maintenance on that will be required, or we'll end up spending a lot of money and still have no water feature?
Yes, we have the will, and we're establishing business processes to enable that. So in the budget deliberations, or discussions, I should say, that we just had with City Council, as an example, we just outlined over $1 million in maintenance and operation dollars that will be needed in this new budget to pay for things like our police training academy, our $10 million aquatic center in District 5. So it's one thing to build a facility, but it's another to maintain it. And we have to make sure we have sufficient funding in the budget and good business protocols or practices. So we're working on both.
Okay.
So we believe that we would be in a position to maintain it.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Voss has his light on.
Thank you, Madam President. That was actually gonna be my question also, was on the maintenance. How old is the water garden? When was it built, 87?
87, so we're
87.
36 years old.
Okay, so with all of these improvements, I agree with Alan. I mean, I've had so many people in the community ask about it, and it's such an iconic feature down there, and it's really, it's beautiful when it's up and running properly. What's the life expectancy of this project after we pump another 8 million into it? Do you have a forecast?
Well, we ought to be able to get at least as much as we got out of the kind of first iteration on it. And
So that
better
was
if we do a
about
little bit better
25
job.
years, because it's been out for a while.
No,
So-
Well, I'm going to say 30 years because we're going to put all the electrical, mechanical equipment above ground.
ground.
It's going to be much easier to maintain. It's going to be back almost exactly the way it was, with the exception of there's going to be some buildings there that are going to house all of that sensitive equipment. So they'll be out of harm's way from flooding. The other thing is that we're hoping to include programmable LED lights, so it's
Okay.
going to be kind of a neat thing to see in the evening, and I think it'll be a better, more utilized space for events.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Jeff. You know, you've been working on this project for a long time now, and finally, we're getting to a point where, you know, I agree with Alan. Like I said earlier, we have to make the investment to get that thing up and running again. As long as we maintain it over the course of the next 30 years, I mean, hopefully it's going to be like it was day one and year 30. I know there's talk about trying to develop a convention-type hotel in that area. Is this land in any way compromise that plan?
We've had the consultant look at that, and we feel like this can be integrated into all of those plans.
Okay. So it's not like one or the other, right?
Correct.
Okay. So to Alan's question, does that 8 million get you where you need to be? Is it all in? I mean, every feature, every bell, every whistle, everything that's going to get this thing looking beautiful. I mean, I just saw in the media this weekend, or I guess it was this weekend, you know, there's issues with the Selena statue and, you know, the music and the lighting and all of that not being taken care of. And that's an iconic figure in our community. People from all over the world come to see that. And then when they see it in that condition, I mean, it's kind of a stain on our city. And this has been a stain on our city for the last number of years that it's been closed. So if we're going to do it, we may have to make sure we do it right. Is there a contingency built in this so that y'all don't have to come back to us and say, well, hey, we undershot, it's going to be a little bit more? That way we don't have to come back and revisit this, because this will be the third, you know, that'll be the third or fourth time that has to come back. What's your all-in price to make it as beautiful as it's supposed to be? Does this get you there?
Well, let me do my best to answer this. So I was a bit apprehensive about asking for the money. We knew, and we've been reporting in our quarterly reports, that
If
we
you're gonna
were
ask
in
big.
funding shortfall and that there was going to have to be additional funding. So we didn't want to ask any more than we absolutely felt like we needed. But
Is there a contingency built in?
there is some contractor contingency built in. I wouldn't turn down some additional contingency.
Well, let me ask the question a different way.
Because I don't want to.
Because they're in negotiations with somebody, and it's essentially a rather, I was occurring to me, John, that it's a very sensitive kind of thing. I mean, if we want to put you in the best negotiating position. Let me put it that way. And I guess that means if y'all think this is the best position for y'all to negotiate, then because sometimes if you say, oh, well, we've got 8.3, then suddenly the budget becomes 8.3.
Right,
So
right. That's the other thing, is when you show the budget, then,
you show your hand.
you show your hand.
Yeah.
I guess I'm comfortable showing this hand.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
okay. All right, good enough.
But-
Thank you.
You brought up something about iconic, and I think maybe I'm the only oldest person in the room, so I can say that the person that designed, I did some research when we talked, and the person that designed this is a man named Robert Zion, who the Singers commissioned, and he's a very famous sort of water feature landscape architect. And as we move forward with this, we might highlight that more, just like the Philip Johnson Museum. Robert Zion has a worldwide presence in terms of his, following for the kind of iconic water features that he did in New York City and other places. So we're kind of fortunate to have his vision here. So,
That's an excellent point, and there had been some discussions about maybe doing something different there. We haven't really looked at that angle, but, you know, it could be.
now I looked him up, and it's Zion, Robert, and he is a big deal. So we don't have many big deals. Mr. Jimenez?
Quick question. I think I kind of answered myself here. I was looking for the original estimate. You know, there was a opinion of probable cost, you know, prior to knowing that we were short. I think I see that it says that the engineer that developed the design concept was around 4.5.
Well, so that's actually not the whole story. Part of the reason, now, a lot of folks, in fact, some of my friends in the media were asking me, you know, what's taking so long. One of the things is that everybody wants to find a better answer. And I think that has caused us to go back to the drawing board multiple times on this. And pretty much what we found is there's not a real better answer hiding over there. And we had come to Type A a couple of years ago. City manager came and requested $8 million for this and $2 million for the Bayshore Fountain. And at that point, we removed it from the CIP because it exceeded the pain threshold for the Type A at that time. And we went back to the drawing board, tried to value engineer this thing, and what we found is there's just not a lot of huge economies to be had there. I think that number that we had come with you, what was it, 2 years ago? That's kind of about what it's going to cost.
Yeah. And the other thing I was gonna ask, like, more or less when it was, if it's an estimate it's a 4.5, it's 3 years old, 2 years old, or even, you know, you're looking at 30-40% more.
Actually, it went
in
from
today's
8 to
dollars.
4.5 after we said, okay, let's go back and re-engineer this thing, and we thought maybe we could get it down there. There was some talk of reusing some stuff there, reusing the vault, leaving some of the equipment in the vault. We just haven't found economies. And then some of the stuff that we thought was good has turned out to not be good. We've done CCTV inspection of a lot of the piping there. As you can imagine, there's a ton of piping underneath there, and we found a lot of the piping is bad, and we've just got to replace it.
And this type of work is real specialized and it's delicate to where there's no, I mean, we do value engineering all our government contracts and work that we do for the government. But something like this, it's tough to go and value engineer something because it's so specialized and so, you know, like you're saying, if you go through and you check the pipes and say, well, I got some light left on them, you know, those pipes will fail 3, 4, 5 years down the road and the whole thing doesn't work. So it's you know, we just finished some splash pads for Nueces County. And just something as small as a splash pad, we had like a 6-month delay in materials and pumps and all the stuff. So this is a whole lot more complicated.
Well,
than
this is
splash
kind of
pad.
like one of those, just a whole lot bigger.
Yeah, definitely so.
So inflation value engineered it a bit for us. It was 8 million, it's now 8 million.
That's about the way that's happened.
Does this include, are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna just say, so I appreciate what y'all are doing for your department and for our from our City Corpus Christi Engineering Department, from our, right? Engineering Department. No, thank you again. This is a
Buzzing
great,
in?
yeah, it is a great project and it's something iconic, you know, and you know, I know my kids are a little older now, but when they were little, we were out there like every other weekend, and there's a lot of people out there, so it's neat. Thank you.
Thank you. Does this include landscaping?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm looking for is there a motion to appropriate and expend an additional 3.5? Your motion is to approve 3.5 additional dollars for the construction of the water garden restoration?
So moved. Oh, second.
Second? Okay. Mr. Valls and Mr. Wilson, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? No? Okay, thank you very much. And now your quarterly report.
Okay, I'm going to go through my PowerPoint. Oh, wrong. Let's see if we can get the next PowerPoint. Okay. And again, Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services, and this is our quarterly project update for the construction projects that we're managing. So the first one on your list is the Salt Flats levee improvements, and that project is substantially complete. It's probably going to disappear from the report next time. The Art Museum repairs and improvements, and again, this is mostly storefront and building envelope work. It is expected to be complete by the end of this month, and so we'll probably report it as being substantially complete on your next report. The Art Center repairs are under construction. It's about 35% complete, and they're expecting completion on those by June this year. Okay, Water Garden. You've been seeing that. I think this was the same slide from our last time. Additional funding is going to be required. The path forward on that, since we've approved that amendment to the CIP, once we get this contract finalized, we've got a second step that we have to go back to City Council and amend that contract to add in the remainder of the budget. They're just under contract currently for $375,000.
So what would be your estimate for project initiation? I mean,
For the construction,
mobilizing?
it's probably going to be pretty quick because the design, it's not totally complete. It's like around 60% complete, but they can start mobilizing and start working as they finalize that design.
And about how long?
Right now, we're estimating 9 months. 9 months to do all the construction.
Okay,
It
so,
originally was, it was originally 7 months, but then when they came back and determined that all the piping needed to be replaced, it added a couple months to it.
so they'll be open for Easter next year?
Give or take,
Yeah,
approximately, yeah.
let's do that.
And one of the things about this particular work item is that it's very susceptible to weather.
Yes.
Everything they do is out there in the open, so, but 9 months, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the Piers project at the marina, it said in your presentation the bids were going to be open this week. They've actually extended that a week, so it's going to be next Wednesday, 26th, that those bids open. The boardwalk project is under design, and we're hoping to get that advertised for bid this summer. The boat haul-out facility and the Cooper's Alley Boaters facility, both of those, we've negotiated architectural contracts on those, and they're scheduled to go first meeting in May to City Council for approval. They've selected Turner Ramirez for the boat haul out and Richter for the boaters facility. And let's see, the next one is the flood wall upgrades, and that one is still in engineer selection. They haven't announced that selection just yet, hopefully we'll be reporting that that's under design at our next quarterly report. And the same with that Harbor East connectivity. So this was the project to try and utilize some of the real estate and infrastructure behind the art museum to connect pedestrian traffic from the ports, kind of park amenity type features that they're constructing under the bridge over to the water garden. That's also an AE selection.
Okay. I do have two questions. I'll go ahead because they may pertain to previous. Go ahead, Mr.
No, you go
Ross.
first.
Mr. Wilson?
Jeff, I probably asked you this and you probably answered and I probably forgot the answer. But in this Harbor Point East connectivity, I'm on the museum board. There's metal walkways that we had to close because they're rusted out. Are we, I think I heard we are in this addressing, fixing that in some form or fashion. Is that
Well,
right?
the concept, and at this point, it's just a concept, and it's something that I think was probably more a concept from some of the port staff than some of the city staff. But the desire was to come up with a way to provide some pedestrian connectivity there that was not as expensive as that waterfront project where we're looking at building kind of promenade on the water side of the Corps of Engineers facility. And the concept was, could we reutilize any of this existing infrastructure, rehab it enough to where it's usable and do that for a lesser cost? So at this point, it's just a concept, and like I said, the first thing that we're going to get through once we get somebody under contract is to be sure and nail down the feasibility on that.
I would ask you to study that because there's safety concerns.
We'll be sure that's part of the scope.
Mr. Voss?
Thank you. Jeff, this is not really a part of this, but maybe, are any of our funding being used to improve the mud bridge? And if so, then can we get an update on the mud bridge? And the same with Waldron Road as well. So it's not really, it has nothing to do with this, but just from your engineering report.
I'm going to call Brett back up to the microphone. I think we're just about ready to reopen.
Can we talk about that? We can? Okay. Madam President, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, excuse me, Mud Bridge first. We are paving today, actually on the bridge. All the structural repairs underneath the bridge are complete. That contractor's demobilizing. They're almost completely gone. And then the guardrails on top, and as you leave either side of the bridge, were replaced. Those are done. Paving's today. We're looking to stripe probably tomorrow or Wednesday, and then put signage and do some minor cleanup and hopefully be open for Friday. That's the plan right now, is to open the bridge back up Friday. So and then for messaging, we have multiple message boards all around that area. We're gonna kind of announce Mud Bridge open, leave them there for a couple weeks so people know. Along with, I think Peter's gonna do a news conference this Friday when we open. So that's the plan right now.
But the question was, is there any type A or B money involved
No.
in this?
No,
Okay.
there's no.
Well, the reason I asked that question was so that we could have standing in delivering this report, but since we're delivering it, great. And then Waldron Road,
Waldron Road is still in progress. We are currently closer to the high school right now. We're working, I believe it's in phase 4 of the project. So we're gonna go down by the high school, and then we're gonna turn back up and head towards SPID.
okay.
So that one's, I don't know, 40 to 50% complete.
It is, so here's the challenge with the mud bridge, going out of commission. The Waldron Road was a huge inconvenience to try and get folks to school. Our kids go to Flower Bluff, so we live way out there near Kings Crossing. So we had to go all the way to SPID to Waldron Road, only to find Waldron Road being worked on constantly. So it's a one-way, and it's 2 lanes, one in each direction. It's huge inconvenience that once that mud bridge was out, that could have been maybe, pushed back a little bit. Or is Waldron Road going to be worked on the balance
Mr.
of it?
Voss, as I understand it, we don't have anything here to do with type A or B.
Well, that's why I was asking,
Yeah,
but
I don't
once you
think
opened
any of
it,
our funds are involved, so I appreciate the concern. I'm sure the city is equally as concerned about the inconveniences, but.
well, what I'm getting at is I asked if we could talk about it, and I was told we could talk about it, so I'm talking about it.
Oh, no, I thought you asked, do we have any money involved?
I was trying to gain standing to make sure we could talk about it.
Well,
So-
we don't.
Right, I know, but now we're talking about it. But we're still talking about it. So is the balance of Waldron going to be done over the summer, or is that going to continue on until the next school year?
It'll continue most likely on to the next school year.
Okay.
And the way we
Just be conscious of that, because, that's the main thoroughfare for getting people to school.
Right.
And it's a huge inconvenience.
So the way we phased this was based on our conversations with the school. So we actually started closer to SPID first at their request, working our way down to allow the students and the parents to get acclimated to the construction, so that as we got closer to them, it was more of a normal, everyday process. So we did work with them to come up with the game plan, but it will continue through next school year.
You'll be
Okay.
better Friday, man.
Okay.
You'll be good
We'll
Friday.
be better Friday. Thank
Let's
you.
move
Thank you,
along.
Madam.
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, do you have any more comments?
That concludes my
That's it.
presentation.
Okay. So you had a number of items relative to the marina, and it sounds like maybe not next month, but relatively soon. I think we'd like to, I'm feeling a little lag in there, and so maybe it would be good to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
to
we
get
have the,
them.
the $30 million in the piers and slips coming forward soon, and the boat haul-out facility design contract's going to city council soon as well, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Once that gets started, could we get an update
absolutely.
from
Yeah, we'll be
Jonathan
glad
and
to do
you?
that, 'cause
Thank
it's
you.
a very important project.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay. And with that, Mr. Zanoni, do you have a report or any comments?
No report, but just to add to the water garden, so we plan to put this on city council for this coming Tuesday. We wanted to come to this board first, obviously, to see if there was additional funding capacity. So the plan is to have it at city council. We'll be doing some briefings also. It could move a council meeting, but the plan right now is for next Tuesday.
Thank you for that.
Okay?
We've been working on this, I think right after we started Type B, we had a meeting with the city council and the water garden, so, yeah. Be good to move that thing forward. As Mr. Voss says, I think there's a lot of community interest in that project. So. With that, if there's no other business or comments, I'll consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.